awkward silence.
All right, here we go. Good morning. Ready, set, go. Coming to you live, it's the Auto Hub Show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Kayla Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient Social Selling for the Car Industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
I was at Larry Coleman's seminar. So happy I came, having such a good time. Thank you so much, Larry.
One of the best trainers in this area for sure. I don't know about anywhere else, but as far as I know, he's the best. So, told you, take advantage. Thank you for having me.
I'm at Larry Feldman's seminar, and what I've found is that what he's really good at doing with his knowledge and with his training, he's not filling a bucket, he's lighting a fire.
Ways to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is, the longer it takes, the more money we spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important thing to do. I'm Mike Burrell, I'm Service Director at JM Lexus.
All right, good morning. And I picked a few books. There's a lot of books on leadership, and there's a lot of books on, I'm sure, human resources. There's a lot of books on people. These are three that I thought were interesting. The first one is Driven by Difference by David Livermore. I think there's a lot of focus on diverse teams, but there's not a lot of focus on why. So that's a really interesting book, I'm sure, on that topic. The Culture Code, because culture is definitely important. Secrets of Highly Successful Groups, and Mastering Collaboration. The video earlier on was talking a little bit about, when people are involved in that plan, obviously they're more likely to execute. And I agree with that 100%. I just completed a degree program where it was really about teams, and that's really what it's about, in my opinion. So, Jeff, go ahead with the disclaimer.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for a couple of people there. Hi, John. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. We have a very timely topic today, but of course we always talk about our disclaimer, which is the views and opinions of the people on the show, and that of them, not necessarily of the Auto Hub Show or Ian Nevick or Jeff Fogle. But what the heck, let's see what happens. Ian.
All right, thanks very much for that. And then, of course, today we're talking about teams. We're also talking about high performance teams. That's obviously, having a team is great, but if they're not high performing, then that might be a challenge, especially today when a lot of dealers that I've been talking to are working with less staff doing more things, kind of similar to what I remember going on in 93 and 2007, which is kind of interesting just because dealers had a great 2022. Staffing seems to be a new challenge in the world. And then, just in case you weren't aware, we are going to be doing a customer experience show next week. We're going to have a lot of different guests on. If you want to have questions about that, reach out. And let's go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, great. Thanks again for joining us. And we will be going live on LinkedIn any second now if we aren't live on LinkedIn. Thanks, God. Appreciate that.
Sure.
So what a great show we've got coming up here now. the topic of teams is very interesting because one of the biggest conversation things that's going on, and we see it on posts and everything, is the changes going on in the industry. And I'm actually calling it panic. You know, Ian mentioned the dealers are cutting staff, they're cutting IT. Actually, we just had a conversation before we went live. Somebody said, a dealer said, actually, I'm looking at cutting back on IT. Yet everybody's talking about is digital. Everywhere you go, it's digital. NADA has got 600 booths, of which 576.2 are digital related. So very interesting. But joining us today, we have a bevy of very interesting people that are really heavily associated with teams. First of all, a gentleman that we haven't had on in a while, but a very good friend of ours in the show is Scott Trainor, the Canadian trader who has moved to Florida. And Scott, take a moment, please, introduce yourself, your business, and answer the first question afterwards, which is the real challenge for dealer teams today is.
Sorry, the question was?
The real challenge for dealership teams today is?
All right. Well, to give you guys a bit of my background, my name is Scott Trainor. I'm the COO at USA Motor Jobs. Yes, I'm the Canadian trader. I traded in my snow boots for flip-flops. I launched, after success with Canada Motor Jobs, we launched USA Motor Jobs down here about 2 years ago. So we're a career forward dedicated to the automotive industry, and we've been growing very quickly ever since in the country. I think one of the biggest problems today is attracting new talent. How are you getting out in the marketplace? How are we bringing new talent in the industry? We all know it's not a secret that there's more leaving the industry than there is coming in. So how do we entice and rejuvenate the automotive industry by bringing the next generation of top talent in with the new ways that the industry is working?
Terrific. Terrific. I agree with you completely, actually, and it's a very interesting time. Next, we have with us probably a neighbor of Scott from, I guess, you know, it's like Americans think everybody in Canada knows each other, so everybody in Florida's got to be right next to each other. I think today's a mostly Florida day, funny enough, is our really good friend, the automotive HR queen of dancing, and also of all the great stuff. Sandy Zannino. Sandy, I would get, is that Zannino or Zannino?
Zannino.
Zannino. Okay, very good. Sandy, please take a moment, introduce yourself, and when you need no introduction, and just your answer to the real challenge for dealer teams today is.
Well, hello everybody, and thank you, Jeff. And actually, funny story. When Scott and I met actually on, well, that's another story, how we did actually meet, the first connection that we had, but then there was Clubhouse. And he says, I'm moving to Florida, and he did move next door to me, moved to the same town I'm in. It was,
that's funny.
You know, there's no mistakes. And Scott and Ariana have a really great business. I love what they do. And while I'm in agreement with what Scott said is our biggest challenge, I think more about the reason behind. Oh, did everybody just hear an echo? That's weird.
Yeah.
I think that the reason behind our inability to attract and retain is a closed mind. That, like, in general, the closed mind that we seem to have, that I see, and we just keep doing the same things over and over, expecting a different result, right? Which for me is the definition of insanity, right? I see John, he knows this definition. And a lot of people do, but we continue to do it. So I think that's our biggest challenge, you know. Contempt, there's another saying that I love, contempt prior to investigation. Well, that's not gonna work, but how do you know, right? Looking at the data. So, okay. All right. So,
And actually, funny enough, popping up my screen is our friend Don Graff from Bonita Springs, Florida. My favorite town, never been there. I love the name. It's gotta be a great place if it's Bonita. And next we have Don Graff joining us, and Don, again, somebody that does need introduction to the auto show himself, but introduce yourself, your connection to the topic, and the answer to the question, the real challenge for auto dealer teams.
So I believe this is a real challenge, a total challenge. I've changed the whole focus of my consulting practice to focus on turnover and culture building and dealership. And I've been 35 years in the car business, spent the MBA Dealer Academy, been educated by J.D. Powers and Associates, where I learned to be a professional facilitator and worked for Merit. So I know what dealerships can function like and should function like. And I believe that they can increase profitability by reducing the turnover if they open up their eyes and don't have just sales managers interviewing people that come to see them. They have professionals like Larry and Sandy and Scott and myself and others do the and actually have onboarding. Onboarding doesn't just consists of following a salesperson around day by day and seeing how they interact with the various people. And it's doesn't mean that they get a desk somewhere and they get a computer and they have sticky keyboard stick.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way it is. And then they find out that if they're in a BDC, they have dead leads from 3 years ago that they. Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a good point. Funny enough was yesterday I commented on a post, somebody posted something that a CEO, if they really want to learn what they can do, they should send an application in to their company and see exactly how people are mishandled, well, they said handled. And then somebody made a comment says something about the onboarding process and would they enjoy that? And I said, what do you mean, be stuck in a room with a password and saying, here's how you learn how we see ya? Isn't the right way to do it? But our next guest joining us, my favorite person to go to when we like to have discussions about the automotive dealership practices at the moment, is Peter Smith, who's joining us from somewhere in Snowland. Peter, you definitely need no introduction, but say hello and tell us the real challenge for dealer teams, please.
Well, first of all, for those who don't know me, I operate a company called Line Partnership. We are experts bringing in the true people that need to be involved in your dealership to give you visibility. So we turn your liabilities into successes. So on this topic, it's a great topic. Automotive News did a survey, and they said that they have a 46% turnover in the auto industry right now, with an average income of $136,000 US. Why would anyone want to leave a job like that? Obviously, there's very big concerns. And the concerns are the culture, the atmosphere, the actual jobs, what people are promised and what they get. It reminds me of the old joke about the guy who goes to the devil comes and says, you know what, we're going to promise you this, and this, and this in your new job, and everything's going to be country club steaks and martinis. And then the guy accepts the proposal, and he goes into the elevator to go to his new job, and he ends up in the swamp. And they turn around and he goes, "What's this?" And he goes, "It's your new job." And it's that way almost all the time in the car business. They promise you $100K income, and they don't tell you how you have to get there to $100K. And your $100K income comes 3 years down the road, not now, and this and that. And so within 90 days, they're gone. They're gone. They're gone before the probationary period. And it's just the wrong process starting from day one. And we have to change it. Onboarding is discussed. Onboarding in the car business is, there's your desk, there's the key room, there's the brochure cover, and go drive a couple cars and come back and tell me what you think. That's the onboarding process. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it orientation. So we gotta change it.
Hey, Peter, it's your buddy Larry Feldman. I appreciate if you didn't refer to me as the devil when you tell that joke. It only happened a couple times, basically.
Well, you know, for those of you that are on live stream or see the recording, you didn't see our opening video, which was former Navy SEAL who's now I don't know what you're not trainer or whatever, team motivator or whatever. And as a Navy SEAL, he said, your team has to respect you. You can't just order them to do it. Think about that. Here's a guy who's in the military, because you can't just order them to do it. Ian.
It's a great book.
Yeah, great. Highly recommend the book. Also, we had a comment from Steven. Did anyone just discover that taking care of your employees is a good idea in 2023, or is it a focus only because there's a growing staffing issue? Embracing diversity and elevating employees, training, satisfaction, and tactically smart always, if we desire lower turnover, improved customer experience, and cultivating your next leaders. I agree with that 100%. It's surprising, as we've done the show now for close to 3 years, that initially we were talking about overall turnover numbers of around 60%. And I think Sandy can correct me here, but I think it was 90% for women in auto. Hopefully that number's declined a little bit. But the turnover is a huge issue. But more importantly, especially when it's hard to find staff, why aren't you focusing on keeping the staff you have and making them happier to work for you? Or to quote Jocko from Extreme Ownership, helping them by having them come up with some of the plans so they actually want to do it, versus saying, hey, you must do this because I write your paycheck. So I agree with that 100%. Among the SCADSA viewpoints, we feel there are a couple of standouts. Our dealership is so great, they should be thankful we hired them. Or our dealership is so great that we have the best people practices, just ask us. Are we just being negative ninnies? Or the ways of old being quashed by a new era where staff is being respected and supported by a majority of dealerships?
That's why people love the way I write our call quotes.
Interesting. That was like a comment last week where someone said they're ginning up the thought point of view. I hadn't heard that term in a long time. But let's go ahead with Sandy. See what you think on this one.
Hey, Ian, thank you. And I'm trying to pull up the NADA workforce study so I can see what they put in there about turnover for women. I think that this whole topic is really interesting, and hopefully at some point, well, I think that there are some dealers. I think there's maybe like 10%.
Okay.
From what I've seen of dealers who are making an effort to have their staff feel respected, right, and welcomed. I just gave a talk where I showed some of the data, right, and what we're talking about here, like the turnover and our inability to attract and retain, is one of the symptoms, right? Like this is a symptom. The consistent turnover, our inability to attract women to this amazing industry that has a lot of opportunity. I see these as symptoms of the opposite of an inclusive culture, right? Like we're all talking about culture, but we talk about culture, but sometimes we don't define it. What does it mean? It's a good culture, it's a bad culture. What the hell does that mean? For me to find that out, and I think that we need to what's it called when you do something backwards?
Deconstruct it. Re-engineer,
deconstruct it.
Yeah.
We need to deconstruct and find out, diagnose what the problem is, and it's going to be different in each store because every dealer is unique, right? So the problems I don't think there's any one problem, and I don't think there's any one solution, but I do think it starts with going back. So I don't think you're being a negative Nelly or Nitty or whatever you're gonna call it. I think I hopefully, like I said in the beginning, I think that closed mind is a challenge. And you know, I just gotta believe, because I love this industry.
Mhm.
It's given me a great life, you know, and then at some point it's gonna give a lot of other people who haven't been able to see themselves in the dealership that same opportunity. So
Thanks for that. I mean, we did have a show on Women in Automotive. We had some.
Words.
Of course you can.
Yeah, the one thing I gotta say is, if all the dealerships were running properly as they should on all 4, 6, or 8 cylinders, they wouldn't need us. The beauty of it is, because dealers have problems in different areas, there's so many opportunities for those of us that learn how to fix the problems that they have. One of the challenges is letting, or how should I say, getting people to admit that they actually have a problem. Because many dealerships are making tons of money. And of course, if they're making money, what can be wrong? What they don't understand is how much more they could be making if in fact they had the right people come in and give them direction as to what it is they need to do to develop their people and make more money.
100%. Thanks for that, John. We had a comment from Joe Boraz. Thanks, Joe. Do you think that the turnover metrics are changed by brand? He was giving an example of Chicago, Mazda, Nissan stores, and Volvo and VW stores have the same people. So I guess the question there is if it's more of a domestic or import, or if it's more of a niche brand, or is that just metrics across the board? What do you think? Anyone?
Nissan in 2020 was at 75%. I think that it was a brand issue and a perception issue because the brand wasn't doing well. So it became a turnstile dealership. Have friends that are, work for the manufacturer, and it was a rough period of time for them. It was 2 or 3 years. And they're coming back now because the product has come back. I know Sandy may have experienced that, some of her clients.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I had the opportunity to work with Nissan, and that was before the whole debacle with the former CEO. But the brand came back strong, but they've always had a turnover issue at the corporate side. And I think salespeople, rightly or wrongly, sometimes believe that the grass is green on the other side. So they jump brands or dealerships thinking that they can sell more of whatever the hot brand is. So in your example, I think it was Volvo or Volkswagen. And I think at the end of the day, you're selling a product, product A versus product B, you're still selling a car, for example. I mean, it's the perception sometimes is you should sell a car that's easier to sell. I think that's a mistake just because you want to stick with a brand or a group, but there's sometimes other reasons. What do you think, Scott?
I think it definitely is a brand specific thing when we're looking at some of the turnover. We have people that are very loyal to certain brands, and then others, like I said, that they are turnstiles depending on the industry. But also, for the last 2 years, it's a question of inventory as well. So some manufacturers were able to provide more inventory than others. And obviously, salespeople need that inventory for a living, so they go to the brands that are able to carry more.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking to a gentleman that I know runs a couple of stores in Oregon, and he's looking to buy a Mitsubishi store or even build one. And Mitsubishi was not adding new franchises because they want to make sure the stores they have inventory, which I thought was kind of an interesting move, especially for Mitsubishi.
Mitsubishi dealers they're used car stores anyway.
Of course. And I take the opposite tack here. I think it's less the brand and it's more the culture of the store and management. Because I've throughout the country, I've seen stores of every stripe that retain and that can't. I think it's more to do with management, how comfortable they make the staff feel, and what kind of hope they give them for their future.
Yeah, I also think that might have to do with.
Larry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Larry, that was an interesting point you made, because like Scott just said, most Mitsubishi stores are used car stores. And, but if you take a look at the stores through the pandemic that sat with empty lots and empty showrooms because they couldn't get new cars, and yet there were others that were full. Their lots were full. They were buying vehicles. They were buying their brand at the auction and paying too much money, but they were delivering cars instead of promising cars. So I agree with you. Partly I understand the brand, but it's also the people that run it that say, well, we can't get cars, so what are we gonna do? I'm on holiday. Or the let's go make it happen.
So
Yeah, it's not the brand, trust me. You go into any dealership in America and look at two salesmen. One guy's making 150, 200,000. The other guy can't make 50. He says the place sucks. It depends. It's more on the person. It's more on the management. Because if it was just the brand, everybody would work at two brands, and all the other brands would be sucking wind.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you look at larger groups, some of them do it better than others, but they spend time on building up that brand and experience. Whether or not that means they retain staff, I don't know. But Sandy, you had some thoughts?
I do, but I have an opinion on this, of course. I mean, they're just, well, I won't say it since we're live, but there's something that everybody has that's just like opinions, because everybody has one.
No.
But I want to give Peter a chance to say something, because I know he's got to jump early.
Well, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate it. So where I basically I look into this is there's 3 E's: ego, empowerment, and engagement. Those 3 things are drive what a dealership's all about. Most dealerships have someone's name on the building. That's an ego issue, and it means you do it my way because I supplied this and I do this, and I know it's going to get me in trouble with a lot of dealer principals, but hey, that's the way I see it. Second thing is employee engagement. If we engage our employees, they'll engage our customers. They will retain ownership of them, and they will service them that much better. So that engagement issue is there. And the empowerment side of it is saying, hey, I trusted you to hire you. I'm going to empower you to make decisions that are beneficial to you, our customer, and our brand and our business. So this is exactly where we're looking at being empowering our business and driving our people forward.
And there was a question for Larry. What 2 brands would be the 2 brands, Larry?
Well, if you're going with the 2 brands, it seems like people are always excited by things like Toyota and Honda. They've become such a mainstay of sales, which is really funny because being elderly, I remember when you said it's built like a Japanese car, it was an insult, as opposed to being the standard, with quality control. But again, it still comes back to what's, you're doing quotes, old famous quote, Oliver Wendell Holmes. It's not what lies behind us or in front of us, it's what lies within us. If you're a motivated guy, you can make a fortune on a used car lot. You can go broke selling the hottest product there is. It depends on your approach and your process. Process is not a sexy term, but speaking as a true certified lunatic, I can tell you that if you don't have a process, if you don't have a plan, if you're not doing something consistently, doesn't matter your skill level, how attractive you are, it always comes down to what can you do consistently. It's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I mean, I sold Hondas for 10 years, and people used to come in because of ads in the 80s and say, oh, these cars sell themselves. I said, oh, then you wouldn't need help then, right? You can just buy it yourself. So, yeah, I mean, I always thought that was BS. Huh?
I started my career at Toyota. I know all about that, about the brands. That it definitely was a leg up.
Yeah, I mean, I had a customer looking at it. He looked at a Honda and he says, "Oh, I'm not going to buy it. I'm just going to look at it before I buy the Toyota." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." Go ahead, Sandy.
I wonder if you would do that at a restaurant, sit there and stare at the food.
Are y'all ready for my opinion?
We're ready. We're ready. We're backing up now.
I wanna thank Joe for bringing like a real, case study. I think it's really interesting. Same group, different stores, but a different experience that's happening. And speaking of experience, my experience in dealership in a group and seeing how different stores have a different culture, right? Even though there's there's a corporate culture, let's say, and that and that comes from the leadership in the store, how that store is being run. That's gonna, how much autonomy each GM might have, even if it's anyway, there's a lot of things that are changing. But when we look at data, right? So NADA for sales, and it's always this way. There's always more turnover in non-luxury sales roles than there is in luxury. It's never been different, right? I don't know what is behind that, but I can't say never, but ever since I've been looking at the workforce studies, I've never seen anything different than that. Now, we did experience lower turnover. And I think we all can, I don't know. I think that is greatly, everybody was like, woohoo, we're down to 35% turnover, I think is what it was, so, for everything. But I think that I can't wait for the next study to come out, right? Just now that things have normalized, now that inventory is back to what it was, and you had people that was mentioned earlier, perhaps new coming into automotive and making 100, 120 a year, not really having to follow processes, not having to be trained. And what's going to happen? I don't think they're going to stay. I think we may be seeing an exodus, right, coming up. I don't know. We'll see. I hope not. I hope that there's some dealers watching this show and that maybe can contact some people on here who can say, hey, let's figure this out before, we're so reactionary, aren't we? Like,
no,
we don't do it ahead of time sometimes. Like, let's figure it out before shit hits the fan.
We had another comment from Steven.
What's up with me?
We had another comment from Steven from LinkedIn. He goes, there are parallels between understanding employee and customer experience in auto retail. The comparison isn't always from another dealership. It's the experience both employees and customers have come to expect from every other career and purchasing experience outside of auto retail. Evolution is continually occurring. I thought that was kind of interesting comment. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, it's funny, Scott, you mentioned you started in Toyota, and I spent most of my career with Chrysler. And the beauty of a Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep store, or whatever you call them, Stellantis or FCA or Daimler Chrysler, you were always sitting there with your hands out. You were always the kid from Oliver. Please, could I have a deal, please? And at Toyota, when I joined the Toyota store, oh my God, the salespeople were going, sir, I can't give you 500 off. I'm sorry, see you later. And it was gold. And then all of a sudden the recall hit and they had to learn. So this is the 800-pound gorilla question. By the way, I went into used car week and sat in a seminar. What's the real cost of that gorilla on the roof? But that's another one. But why can't, in general, dealerships keep and find good people? Don't everybody talk at once. But Scott, you're looking right at me.
I think it's simple. This industry has, I'll put it bluntly, they've neglected their staff and their team for a long time. They haven't valued them, and not just valued monetarily. They haven't treated them like people. They haven't understood that they have lives, that they have needs, that they have wives, that they have children, that they have husbands, and that they have a life outside of the dealership. They've been overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated for many years, and especially when we're seeing technicians. Salespeople, it's a bit easier to brush off for finance managers. When you're making 200, 300, 400,000 a year, it's like, suck it up, you know, look at the money you're making. But when we're looking at technicians, it's definitely, the culture needs to change, to not only retain what we have, but to attract new talent into it. So that's my comment.
You know, it reminds me of a comment that Peter and I, in our little back and forth chats that we had on, is how a lot of dealers or a lot of chief executives or whatever that have been doing it a long time started by working their tails off. And they think that's the only route. Now a lot of them, they come in at 10, they leave at 4, they go to the boat, they go to whatever.
How many PFs can you get on a Friday afternoon in the summertime?
In Florida, none. In Florida, you can't get them in the afternoon. Really, it is true. And, you know, the fact is they're not there, they're gone. And yet, you know, how many times do we see these posts on LinkedIn? Friday night phone calls, yeah, we made 800 calls, yeah, we made 9 appointments, yeah, way to go. We're here till midnight, way to go. So, enough of that. Next, Don, what's your opinion? Why can't we keep and find good people?
You can find them, you need to be professional. And you know, Sandy hit it on the head, you have to have a different way of doing it. You can't keep doing it the same way. You can't keep running these ads. I mean, I have a previous client, they run the same ads all the time. In fact, they could advertise for a BDC person or salesperson in 3 or 4 different stores, and they'll have 3 or 4 different ads. They don't even have continuity. And they'll run those same ads because they believe it gives them an edge to show that they have a lot of activity. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why?
I have to tell you, I've got to do a little plug here. If you want us to draw people in applications, call our friend Larry Feldman, who's run away from the screen. I use him at holy cow that I get a lot of good leads. Unfortunately, it's for a little used car lot. Most of these people are used to having separate bathrooms and stuff. So moving right along, Sandy, we know you're an expert on this. Why can't we do that?
I think we have. I think we have found a lot of amazing people. It's as Don kind of said, it's the keeping them that where we have a challenge. And you know, I not long ago, well, I guess it's been a little while. Now I wrote an article called something about, you know, how we're always looking for a good fit, right? And when I look at the generations that are in less than 2 years, 64% of our entire workforce, whatever industry you're in, will be millennial and Gen Z. And it is time to get ahead of this and look at what these generations want, right? Because we have a challenge now that we need to get the knowledge and skills and information that boomers and Gen Xers hold, right, and give it to the next generations. So I think that we need to throw, I'm looking for a good fit out the window and look within and see how we can fit these generations, right?
Flexibility now.
I'm sorry, Tom.
I think it's about flexibility now. Is that what
I
you're talking about?
I think that is one aspect, right? I think that it, I mean, it takes some research to figure out what each store is going to do, right? And what each group wants to do and where they want to focus. It's not I don't believe that it is, there's no magic wand, right? Do this and suddenly everybody's going to want to work at your store, right? But one place you can start, because I've said this before, that if your current employees if they're not your best recruiters, right? If they're not telling their friends, come and work where I work because it's freaking awesome, you need to find out why. So go, I would say start there, like start there, finding out from your employees, why don't they refer, especially if you've got a monetary referral program, which a lot of organizations do, right? Free money, why aren't they taking it?
Sandy, it still comes back down to the culture, how you treat your people and how you make them feel.
So Larry, I'm gonna interrupt you. How do
Okay,
you
please.
define culture?
Oh, that's really, really easy. Culture is a friendly, warm, opening thing where there's communication, where you're not afraid to go to your boss and your boss isn't afraid to call you in and say, let's talk. I jumped off for a minute. I just made a deal with somebody, but let me tie everybody together other than my best friend, Sam. I was just in town the previous week. Oh, be quiet, Jeff. You're always jealous. Quiet, can't do the prom. I took you in. You look better with that little flower in his belt. I was just in Florida last week. I had the pleasure of dining with Mr. Graff and Mr. Trainor. And I was at a store where I just got 9 new guys hired. And I am proud to say that I saw 5 people in one store and 4 in the others from multiple stores that are still there after being hired last year. Why? Because the head guy, Bill Finicaro, is a gentleman. He's friendly. He's approachable. He puts his arm around people. You got Joe Boros on here. Joe, I was invited to dinner for NADA by Tim Hayden, another one of your fine guests, with him and Troy Shear. And Troy Shear just sent me an email that he went back to the restaurant, Drake, and then Maitre D, Joe backed me up, hugged him, and said, man, I loved you guys. I remember the table you were at, I had fun with you. We didn't complain about the food. We were funny, we were engaging. If you make people feel comfortable, they feel comfortable. And if it's one of these things where, like some of you intimated, you're correct, Scott said it, they overwork you, they underpay you, and you feel like you're a number. It's the same way a customer feels. You don't appreciate me? I'll find somebody that does. That's all, Sandy. By the way, Sandy, it's nice to see you.
Hey, Larry, Peter.
So,
Peter. But I wanted to just say one thing. Just before you get started, Peter, one thing. Why is it, and Sandy mentioned millennials and Gen Z, why is it you go into a dealership and you got a 21-year-old salesperson who's doing exactly what you and I did, or were taught to do when we started selling cars 6 years ago?
6 years ago. That's funny. So you're obviously on the metric system then.
There we go.
So one of the things that is being talked about here is culture. It's that 800-pound gorilla. You go it. It's about being honest and transparent about the work environment that you're going to employ these people in. If you turn around and say, you know what, this is going to be the best place you'll ever work in your entire life, and you're gonna call everybody you know in the business, and you're gonna try and get them in here to work with you. That's what that utopia is what we're trying to develop. However, we don't have that yet because it's not happening, and basically everybody who talks about this business doesn't talk about the great stories. They talk about the horror stories. And so we got to change that. I ran a Volvo dealership up here a number of years ago, and I instituted a 4-day work week. And I said to my employees, I said, we're asked to work 5 days, 8 hours a day, 40-hour week. That's what we're asked to work. Would you rather work 5-8, or would you rather work 4-10? And because most people in a car dealership work 10 hours a day anyway, so it was a no-brainer to them. They turned around and said, what, you mean we can actually have this off, and we can have 3 days off in a row and have a work-life balance? Yeah, absolutely. I'll design a schedule to make you guys happy. And that's what building a team is all about. It's not saying, and another dealership group I worked for many years ago, we had when CRMs were first introduced, the person who put the lead in the CRM owned that lead for life. So when you were talking to someone, that person, you put it in right away, and if that person came in and bought a car, you got 100% of the commission. You were expected to look after the customer, not the customer number. so that the customer number was yours, the customer was the dealerships. And you looked after the customer, and at the end of the day, everyone got looked after, and everyone was in tune to taking their time off, so they weren't burnt out, and it was a team atmosphere. And if someone turned around and changed the name in the CRM and got caught by it, the salespeople fired the other salespeople. It was end of story. You're not a team player, get out. And that's the mentality we have to do. We have to have an all for one for all mentality. We have to look at a work-life balance. We have to engage our employees so that you will engage our people. Richard Branson said it best: look after your employees, they'll look after your customers. Simple as that. And that means pay plans, honesty, transparency, a diverse culture within it, everything. It's so important. So that's my 2 cents.
But I hate to be, I guess, somewhat negative, but when dealers are missing on the basics, do you really think they're up to the challenge of fixing culture? I mean, that's where I see. I mean, it's a great goal, but the question is, how do they get to that area of teamwork when they have challenges just achieving the basic stuff like that? That's where I feel is the biggest challenge. What do you think?
So very quickly, fear of loss. I did a study just recently for Auto Dealer Magazine, and I showed that on 69 dealerships, that 67% of them were not even coming close to peer averages. So, and that was based on 32 metrics. It is incredible when you turn around to a dealer and you say, here, this is what your other competition is doing, and this is how they're engaging, and this is how they're winning. What are you doing? How do I get there? Because it's all ego driven by the stakeholders. And it's not business driven. And that's why I said we got to change it from the car lot to the car business and focus on the business part of it, because each of our salespeople is responsible for anywhere from $6 to $25 million in revenue. Like, you have to look at it, they're a business operating within a business, and we got to keep those businesses operating at a high level with high success, with empowerment, with engagement, and remove egos from everything.
Thanks for that. Sandy, what do you think?
I think I'm enjoying this whole conversation.
No comment, no problem. Mr. Scott, what do you think?
Listen, Peter said it best, and I'm just gonna echo what Peter said. We all have the same mindset. We all know what should be done, which is almost the part that bothers everybody the most. Dealers, it's not complicated what should be done, but yet the dealerships are not doing what needs to be done. It's mind-boggling. Sorry, I just get it. It's very simple. The path is very simple. What we need to do.
Scott, I have to tell you something. So Liam's comment made, how can you work on culture when the rest is broke? In my opinion, culture is everything, because you can't fix broke if nobody cares. And culture is a very, very vague term. What is culture? Well, what's the culture? When the dealer principal walks in the door, doesn't talk to anybody, or comes in the back door and comes up the back stairs and doesn't see people, a customer comes in with a complaint and they've got an escape path to get out of there, or the receptionist says, I want to speak to the boss, well, they're not here, and they're up in their glass office above. I believe culture is everything, and culture starts at the top, and just like a certain other item, flows downhill. Yeah. And if that person is all about the most important thing in that business, which is me, they're dead.
Yeah.
Understood.
Well, example, when I was at a store when I was back home in Montreal, when I was at a Mazda store, we had a great culture. It was for the Hammer Group. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of them.
Yeah.
Mr. Hammer would drive, when he come visit his stores in Montreal, when he was in Toronto, he didn't know everybody's name. Of course, he didn't know every service advisor, the receptionist, but he would make a point when he would visit the dealership, he would go and say hello. Hello, how are you? Is there anything we can do? how is everything? Of course he didn't know everybody's name. He has thousands of employees, but he made the time when he did the dealer visits to stop by and see everybody, which made people feel valued. Was there always something that could have been done? No, but people felt that they were heard. Then we were bought by a different group, which you guys know well, I won't mention, where then we became a number. All we were was a number on a spreadsheet. How much are you producing? What are you bringing to the dealership? And then we would send it to corporate every Friday. I was managing the store. I'd have to send the corporate the numbers from everybody and the report. And that's how the new group was managing the store after they bought it from Mr. Hammer. The culture dropped significantly, the mood, and people were no longer happy there. Because people want to feel like they're part of something bigger. They don't need the power to do it. They need to feel like they're heard and they're contributing to something that they're part of. They don't want to work for something. They want to work with people.
100%.
Well said.
We got a comment from Joe. Peter's right on. Boomers and even Gen X believed in competition, and I'm a competitor. I get that, but millennials and Gen Z think that team approach could be very successful. Go ahead, Sandy.
So, I want to bring up storytelling, right? Because there's been a couple of stories, right? And that's how, for me, that's how culture is expressed, right? And I always encourage HR when you're, or whoever does the orientation onboarding, especially, but to incorporate those stories into this when you're talking about the culture. A lot of groups that I know, you can look on the website, and these are our core values, right? So it's imperative to have stories, real stories, because that's how you are connecting with people, which we're not very good at sometimes. We're not good at connecting with our candidates in order to say, this is why you want to come and work for us, and we're even worse sometimes at connecting with our new hires, right? But it's through storytelling. So like Scott just told a story that clearly expressed the culture of a group where he worked, right? Of what it was, because the answer is the culture is defined by what is it like to work around here, period.
Yeah, and Sandy, to your point, look at all the dealerships' websites. Everybody has great culture, great this. Like, no, what is their culture? Like, you go on most career pages, and they all say we have a great culture. We have this, we have that. What is it? They're all boasting the same thing. So how are you setting yourself apart from others? I mean,
Scott, correct me if you or do you agree with this? Right, all of that should be on your website.
It
right?
should.
On your career page.
They should have employee testimonials, not just, we have great culture and great benefits. Okay, every dealership says that. Why? If you look for a great example, you look at Patrick Abad over at Beaver. When they do their videos about culture, how their dealership works, and how involved the ownership and management is, and everything they're doing for the community, everything they're doing for their employees, they are one of the pinnacles when we're talking about culture and storytelling, and that's why
they're really, really big. Why is that? I mean, the two of these things come in hand.
No.
They're like located in the largest single population center of North America, right? I'm kidding. But what I'm saying is they're really big, and it's because they're doing something right.
Well, look at Rob Ruth Ford. There's another example. I mean, they're out there promoting it, and rightly or wrongly, I would even say caught rightly or wrongly. You always see, celebrating employees on video. You see, the owner rightly or wrongly training the team. You see, a lot of posting. And Sentez is another one that really, is community involved, where you see that it's not about cars only. Like, it's about how can we help people, right?
No, and then
it's not about cars at all.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to say this is not about cars at all.
Yeah.
Our business,
it's about people.
And to that point, when people are looking at, when potential customers are following social media or they're shopping for their cars, this is helping the dealership sell cars on top of it, because they see how well the dealership takes care of their employees. They see what they do for the community. They see how happy the employees are. People want to do business with people like that. It's not about the price. We are in a people business.
100%. And Peter had to jump off. Unfortunately, he's at a funeral, so sorry about that. Jeff, and since it's the time, obviously we got a bonus question here. Did you want to start with that, or do you want to do final thoughts? What do you want to do?
Well, let's do the bonus question. What the heck? So let me see. Scott is the person who has the longest answer, but the most impactful answer. Scott, why?
Why?
Why? Why? You tell me why. It's my favorite question of every throw. We're talking about teams. Take it from there. Why?
Why do it? Because it's the future of the business. It's not the future of the business, it's the future of the industry. We really have to do this all together. And I mean, I'm just going to reiterate everything we said today. We all had great points. And that's why it's going to bring you retention, it's going to bring you sales, and it's going to bring long-lasting partnerships for the dealership. It's really not hard to do. We mentioned many great operators, and so it's proven it can be done. Now we should ask the other ones, why are they not doing it?
Why do we have to have, Jeff, why do we have to have such a negative slant? Let me inject an air of positivity. On behalf of recruiters everywhere, I want to thank dealers for their gross incompetence and mistreatment of the people that leave. I'm already looking at a bigger vacation home. That's all.
Exactly. Well, I have to tell you something. I will only admit to 30 years in this business. And I've talked about this before. In the 90s, Chrysler had a program called Customer One. And they taught everybody about taking care of the customer. However, they took all the management, senior management, and all the dealer principals and had them do one session. And the funniest thing in the world is when you take 40 people who are used to telling everybody what to do, putting a blindfold on them and having them hold a long rope and say, turn it into a square, standing over the parking lot, and watch what happens. The square looked like a Formula One racetrack. And everybody's telling each other where to go. And you know, probably a few of them did too. But here's the interesting part. As long as I can remember, we're talking about taking care of people. I had a hope when the pandemic hit. Until the idiots at the OEM said, oh my God, we can't sell cars, cancel all our orders for chips. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what an opportunity for people to actually care about people in dealerships. Instead, it was a great opportunity to get rid of all the people they didn't want. Not the people that weren't doing the job, the ones that the owner, manager didn't like or whatever. They got rid of them. They brought back the people they felt were most beneficial to them, not the business. Sandy, why? Not what I said in general. You changed it.
I would say, why not? Why not try something new? What's the worst thing that's going to happen, right? If it doesn't work, and if that doesn't work, why not try something else?
I say we replace new with good.
Yes.
You know,
I'll go
because
with that.
yeah, because we know it's good. Nobody, you know, people who don't treat people well. You ever see them come back from a meeting with the OEM and they're all pissed off and they're throwing things and everything because they gave them heck?
Have you been in a meeting with OEM though, Jeff?
Yeah, I have.
So
And-
I think
Go ahead.
that getting ideas from other, you don't have to come up with it all on your own, right?
I agree.
Talk to your people, talk to your other managers, let everybody have a voice, right? And try something new. Why not? That's
You
my
bet,
answer.
you bet. And you know, I have been in meetings with OEMs on both sides. Not the OEM side, but in the side where they're giving you heck. And on the side where they're coming to, when we did our Toyota store, we fixed this place that they flew out to talk to us to ask us what they should do. What a great thing. It was so nice not to have a person who's never been in a dealership working in their life come to you and say, you're not doing this good, to think, holy cow, help us figure something out. But we've been there by saying, you do not do things the way people, I know. That's my bad example, not saying that. Don, why? We've been ignoring it. First, I thought you're drinking now.
Well, about engagement, they're not engaging their people at any level. They're leaving them alone
Until?
till they die.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, one quick aside. I'm on the job, I'm going back to 1988, my first week, and the GM is walking out of the store and the operator says, and there was quite a few salespeople like myself standing up front, "You have a call, boss," and he said, "Tell him I left." And I thought, what a moron. If somebody with a small service problem and you solve it, you're a hero. If it festers overnight, now they want to kill you. If it's somebody that wants to buy 2 cars and the money's burning a hole in their pocket, they'll call somebody else. So when salespeople hear the head guy is saying, "I'm not here," what do they think? It's just setting a simple example, treating people like you understand that the business revolves, as Sandy said, around the people, not the damn cars and not around the ownership. Because as Sam Walton said, the most important person is the customer. If they stop shopping or going to your business, you don't have a damn business.
100%.
Move forward 35 years, and how many GMs do you think are out there that same thing happened? There's lots that just come running and pick up the phone, but it's probably way more than they tell them I'm not here. Or who's calling? I love that one. Can I speak to the general manager, please? Can I tell them who's calling, please? Yes.
Why bother? Jeff, they're always in a meeting anyway.
Yeah. The best one is, are they expecting your call?
Yeah.
Yeah, are they expecting your call?
Yeah, at 10:45, I told them I was going to call them.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we're out of time.
John, John, I haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, John, give us a thought.
Tell us why.
Just hang on, I was here as a neutral observer.
That's okay. I'm still gonna ask you why.
What's the question?
Why?
Why?
Listen, one of the biggest things that have come to light in the most recent past is the lack of a word that should be very commonplace in humanity as a whole, never mind just dealerships. And that word is empathy.
Yeah.
We are not very empathetic towards customers, towards each other, towards our employees, etc. We need to learn to be empathetic. We don't know what other people are going through, right? And what's really interesting is I had a phone call from a young man that I trained 4 years ago. And fortunately for him, he became a top salesperson at this dealership. He just left after 4 years. Last year, he made $113,000 in a small town in rural Nova Scotia. But one of the reasons that he left was the lack of empathy that he felt management had toward him and his family situation, which I don't want to go into because of privacy issues. But because of that lack of empathy, he felt that, you know what? I just don't think I can work here anymore. And the other thing he brought up to me is, you know, I've been here for 4 years and I'll bet you the owner doesn't even know the name of my kids. And there were only 4 salespeople on the floor.
Here's an interesting one, and then Sandy, we were talking about the NADA thing. What is the cost of losing a 4-year tenured salesperson? The real cost. And I know 25 years ago, a 1-year salesperson was $12,000. So I guarantee a 4-year person got 6-figure cost.
I mean,
All it takes was a hug. Well, figure of speech.
right. I mean, it's hard to calculate it, but we know that salespeople it takes 3 years for them to reach their peak potential, right? So if you're, you know,
3 to 5 years, yeah.
Right? Like, and
Hey, I know, I had a sales guy that was in this store, this Toyota store. He'd been there 15 years. I had left. The group changed. It was terrible what happened at the group. This guy literally never took an hour. Sat in his office, people came into him, he phoned people and follow up, doing 25 cars a month. The COO hated 20 car a month salespeople because he felt they were prima donnas because they wouldn't do it his way, which is truly his words. But he left, he went to another dealer, dropped down to 12 cars a month, and they dropped down, they lost probably 15 of his 24 customers. So a lot of people would travel long distances to see him. So in the end, everybody lost because if one person, one guy didn't care in general.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I normally don't say guy because there's all sorts of, on all kinds now.
Well, we're out of time, Jeff. So any final thoughts? I think you just had them.
I just want to tell you, everybody have a buenos dias. I'm in my last few days here in Mazatlan, and I will see you all next week from the beautiful unclimate change Vancouver, unfortunately. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your input, and great to see you all. Some of you I haven't seen for a while. Sandy, I'm still pissed at you because I only saw you for 6 minutes at an ADA. So next
I
time.
know. Next time.
Next time.
And you're resplendent in yellow, I must say.
And we will be at NAIDA.
Brooklyn.
We will be at NAIDA live in June in Vegas. If anyone's going, we're still planning that out. So
Yeah, NIADA.
NAIDA, Independent Auto Dealer. So for the people that aren't worthy,
NIADA.
No, NI.
okay,
NIADA.
yeah, that's what we'll be there in June and live. Just so you know. Have yourself a great week.
The only acronym is RESPECT.
There you go. I messed it up again. All right, ciao. Thanks.
Oh, no. Have a great day.
Have a happy day, everybody.
Same to you.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.